I'm going to show you absolutely everything you need to know about fabricating box section. I'm going to make sure everything goes wrong in this video so I can show you how to rectify it before these things happen. So enough of me talking, let's get into the video. So what do we need? We need some chalk, engineer's chalk, 1 or 2 slitting discs and a flapper wheel. We're not going to be using a chop saw in this video, we're going to be using an angle grinder because 90% of the time we're going to have a chop saw available and it already has the cutting degrees marked out on this. You're just going to turn it, clamp your box section in and away you go. If you practice with an angle grinder, it's a lot harder and you'll thank me down the line if that's all you have. Get yourself 2 little pieces of mild steel, aluminium or stainless steel, 2mm thick or 3mm thick if that's all you have. I'll show you what that's used for when it comes to tacking up. Now I'm using 2 vice grips, but if you only have G clamps, that's not a problem at all. We've got a engineer's protractor. I nearly said it wrong then. I always call it an angle finder, that's all I've ever known it to be. Let me know in the comments below what you call it. We need a metal rule, a combination square. We're going to be using this for marking out and cutting out 45-degree cuts. Now you need a square, okay? I've got a small one. I've got a small square, okay? There's nothing wrong with this size. You can use a bigger one. Because of the size of the box section we're using, this is perfect. We need a scribe, a hammer, tape measure, nothing special about that. Now with the box section we're going to be doing this exercise with, I was asked to do 1.6. I could only get 3mm thick, 25mm by 25mm. The thing is, with this exercise, you can use it going forward on bigger and thicker box sections, not a problem at all. You're going to learn everything you need to know with this going forward anyway. I'll measure in 10mm from the end. So I'll get my measuring tape. I'll measure in 10mm from the end. I'll just mark it with my scribe. I got my square. And the reason I'm doing this is because I like to work off what's called a datum line. So a datum line is, if you've had a plate given to you that you've got to shape yourself or cut or mark out, and it's not square, but you've had an extra, say, 20mm added to that plate, so you're able to do a nice line that's straight and square so you can work off of that line. Does that make sense? You with me on that one? It's something, a reference point to start from. And now we've got a 10mm line here marked out. What I'll do now, watch this now, is I'm going to mark out my 45-degree cut. Now, can you see, this is the problem you're going to have, all right? When you're starting off, you're going to go, well, which way do I use my combination square? Because this line on here is 45 degrees true already. And this is what we're going to be using for our 45-degree cuts. And if you look, you're going to end up like this. This is the problem. I had this problem, I know a lot of people will. What you do is go like this, okay? This is our first line. Watch this now. I'll make it easy for you. Now, to you, it's going to look like that. But from my point of view, it's the opposite way around. If you do a chalk line first, you know which way your 45-degree cut should be going first off, okay? So then you're able to get your combination square, look at it perfectly, and then we just get it right myself. Now we know that we need to follow that chalk line. So just get in line. And that's our first line placed in here now. That's our first 45-degree cut. What I'm going to do now is we'll flip it over. This is a second thing that happens. I struggled with it as well. Because you'll flip it over, our cut's going fine this way, but when you flip it over to that side, you're going to go, right, now which way do I go? Like, where do I set it from now? Because I've already set a 10mm line on this side already. So what you want to do is, same thing again, mark your line. The line's already there with a scribe, but it's always nice to have engineer's chalk just to mark it out for you. So we know it's going that way, so that's our 45 that way. Turn it up onto this face here. So in front of you, you're looking at it from down to here. And it's going from that angle. So this is the way it's going. So to you, you're able to see that perfectly. To me, I got to turn it back around this way now. Do you get where I'm going with this? I'm trying to explain this in a way that's it's easier to understand. So you're not stressing too much then, thinking, well, which way's my cut's got to go? Are they correct? Because what will happen is you'll mark it out and you'll cut it out thinking it's correct. One cut will be going one way and the other will be going the other way. And you'll look around and you think, how have I done that? And you'll be mind boggled then. So like I said, mark out where you need to cut. Use your chalk as a rough guide of which way your angles need to be going, okay? So now we have our lines marked for our 45-degree cuts. What you want to do is go along, cut them out with your slitting disc, get your tape measure, mark out 250mm away from that, or whatever dimension you're doing, mark your line, and then put the box section in front of you and check before you do your cuts. Get your chalk again, mark out 45 degrees before you use your combination square, okay? Because we want 1, 2, just like that, perfectly. We don't want one up in the air like that. You don't want to end up cutting your box section and you do your other cut and you go, one's like that and one's like that. And you've got to start again. And like I said, things may go wrong, but this is where I'm explaining to you so they do not go wrong for you then. I'm just going to cut mine out, give me a second. Here's our finished result. What I want you to do is make sure you're cleaning around each side of every section once you finish each one. Put a bevel all the way around your cut just to make sure when it comes to welding, we're getting enough penetration in there, making our frame nice and strong then. We know it's not going to fall apart on us. Right, so what I want you to do now is you carry on, finish all of your cuts, and then we're going to go on to tacking up and welding. Now that we've got all our box section cut, I'm just going to use my engineer's protractor. You would have used one in school, it's exactly the same thing. I'm just going to check how much I was out using an angle grinder. Like I said, it's harder using an angle grinder because when you use a chop saw, you know, clamp it up, pull the handle down, away you go. It's all done for you. I've set my protractor to 45 degrees, but it's actually reading about 46 degrees, so it's 1 degree out. That's not the end of the world. I can get away with that, and so can you. Do you remember I was talking about these little pieces of metal? I'm using aluminium. You can use mild steel, stainless steel. The reason we're using this, okay, what I've done here, I've already clamped it up for you before we tack it. Put it across the top, clamp it on the edge of your bench, okay? Because you want to make sure you're working off a flat surface. This plate is not, it's going to make sure that we don't have any misalignments, we don't have any up and down with the box section. It's going to be perfectly flat. Just make sure or try to get that outside corner the best you can. Once it's clamped up then, tack at the top, tack at the bottom. Do not tack it anywhere else. You want to make sure we have some movement in us and play. Get your next L piece, take the clamps off the one you've just tacked. Do the same thing. Take your clamps off then. Join the whole thing together. And I'm going to show you now what mine looks like complete. Ta-da! So here's our over-strengthened photo frame. Now to you, that looks pretty much square. To me, that looks square. But I know for a fact, I made sure that it wasn't square. When I tacked it up incorrectly. Just so I can show you how to use a tape measure from point to point, point to point, making sure that it's square and it's the same size from both corners. So I'm going to bring you a bit closer now and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. From the outside corner, put your tape measure there, go to the opposite side. Now this is measuring at 475 this way, and then it's measuring at 470 this way. So it's 5mm out this way. So this is the tip. Now if this happens to you, one side is bigger than the other and you need it to be equaled out to make sure that it's perfectly square. The side that's bigger, what you want to do, watch closely, make sure you can mark it out if you want. I know this corner is the longer side. You can put a bit of white chalk on there just to make sure, and you might have to use 2 people if it's a big frame. And what you want to do is bang it down on the table. Just give it one good bang, put it down flat again, check again from corner to corner. 470, and just for pretending, 471. You know, we could get it closer and closer each time. So depending on how much out of square you are, you may be miles out of square and you're not going to be able to get it back. But the reason we tack it on the corners is to make sure we've got some play so we're able to go side to side. There's no weld anywhere else, okay? And speaking about welding, I'm going to explain to you now, because I got asked a question, Curtis, what's the best welding process? What should I be doing? Should I be grinding my welds off? I'm going to go into that now just at the end, okay? So that's how to make it square, your box section or any frames that you're doing. Like I said, it depends on how much out of square you are, or the size of the frame might be massive, so you're not going to be able to do it anyway. But 9 times out of 10, if it's something you can pick up or you can pick up with someone else, the side that's going the longest out of square, bang it on that corner. Once you hit it on that corner, it should bring it back around. But make sure you're only tacking the outsides, okay? I need to sit down now. It's been a long video. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, press the bell icon to stay up to date. Going on to my last question now. Curtis, what welding process should I use? Now the first thing I'm going to say, make sure you don't put too much heat into the frame. So what I mean by that is, don't weld all of one corner first, okay? And there's a point to this, stagger your welds. So I'd TIG weld this, and I'd TIG weld it all day if I could. Put one weld there, flip it over, do it the other side. Because if you, and then go over to the other part and do it again. Does that make sense? Because if you put all your heat into one part, the frame is just going to go wonk, it's going to be out the square straight away if you start in one corner and weld that whole one corner. So if you use the MIG-MAG welding process, there's going to be a lot of heat, even if you turned it down. So yes, you can use the MIG-MAG welding process, but I would only do it if it's a very, very, very thick box section and it's a massive one and the welds aren't getting ground off. If the welds were getting ground off, I try my best to TIG weld it all because it's quicker to clean up. You know, you're going to grind it off quicker, the job's done, job's out the door. Now you can stick weld box section. I've got a, it's 10 years old, I got a little workbench here that when I started off, I'd stick welded it, and it's made out of stainless steel, and it's lasted, it's perfectly fine, but it's harder to tack together a box section frame with a stick welder, as you know, but it can be done. So like, it's a bit of a grey question what process to use, but like I said, first tip, make sure you don't put much heat into the box section because it's going to be out the square if you weld it all in one corner first. Stagger your welds. Check if the welds are going to be ground off or the welds are staying there, so you know then, can I get away with TIG welding if the welds aren't getting ground off? Can I still get away with it with TIG welding even if they are getting ground off? How thick is the box section? What's the finish going to be like? There's so many different variables. Look at the job first and think, right, which way's the quickest, which way's the strongest, and then go from there. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've tried to go into absolutely everything that I can for you. Please, take care of yourself, take care of each other, stay tuned.